Well, I wanted to welcome you to my channel, Observer of Anomalous Objects, and I want you to know how grateful that I am that you've chosen to watch this episode and be a part of it. I've kind of been troubled by what I've seen going on UAP Twitter or UAP X, whatever you want to call it, but I've been very, very concerned with kind of, I think, low spirits is what I'm seeing. And I think that the last hearing was such a rush, and such a high that with every high there's a low. And I think that we're going through that right now. And so I kind of felt like it was time to put out a video and talk about what disclosure is. Well, basically, not only what disclosure is, but how do we get there? How do we get to disclosure? And I don't think it's the way most people think. I don't think it's going to happen strictly through congressional hearings. Let me go ahead and put up Mr. Burchett. I guess they messed with my video. Anyway, I hate it when there's little technical errors, like the T on the last of his name got moved, and I don't know why, because I had it placed exactly where it was supposed to be. But anyway, I don't think we're going to get there by hearings alone. I think hearings are good, and we've had 3 of them, and the first 2 were basically, as Ross Coulthart would say, they were nothing burger. But I think the last one we made progress. But as I've said in multiple videos, there's going to be pushback. And when you have a hearing that went that well, then we have to expect that there's going to be pushback. And so that's what we're seeing. They're talking. I think it was Chris Mellon said it doesn't look like there'll be another hearing from the House Oversight Committee, and I think we could do with another hearing. But as we talk about David Grush and getting him in a skiff, that really wasn't the committee that could do this, because they didn't have the clearances. It has to be the Armed Services Committee or one of the Intel committees to be able to do that. But I'm so grateful for the last meeting we had with Tim Burchett and Representative Luna and Representative Moskowitz. It's kind of a hard name to pronounce. But anyway, what I really appreciated about those individuals is that they were bipartisan. I think you had 2 Republicans there and a Democrat. And I really want to challenge everyone who's a part of this movement, who's a part of trying to figure out what this phenomenon is, to unite, to put politics aside, because this is way bigger than what politics are. We just have to understand this is like the biggest mystery in the history of the world. And so if we're going to get to disclosure, the only way it's going to happen is if we are united. And so we've got to continue to go down the path we had. The last hearing was awesome because we got to hear from Commander David Fravor, who was a Marine pilot, and he was on board the USS Nimitz. And most of you know this information, so I hate rehashing stuff that people know. But you know that he was a part of the Tic Tac event that took place. He was the one who actually had eyes on this 40-foot object that looked like a Tic Tac. And I mean, I can't imagine what it would have been like to see something like that. I mean, I know they see things all the time, but I don't think they see things like a 40-foot Tic Tac every day. And to be able to see what this Tic Tac could do, and the way it could maneuver, and the right angle turns, and the 600 Gs that it was pulling, I mean, that had to be phenomenal. And I know Commander Fravor said he'd like to fly that, but his body could not handle the G forces. And so unless they figured out a way to resolve that, there's no way that would happen. Then, of course, we had Ryan Graves. He was part of the USS Roosevelt in 2015. I think that's where they got the gimbal video from. And he didn't actually see it himself, but he was there when pilots landed and were talking about it. But two very credible witnesses, and I'll be upfront, these weren't necessarily my first choices when it came to the last hearing. But as I've thought it over, there are others that I would have preferred. But having said that, I think that both Fravor and Graves were excellent witnesses. They have the credibility to be able to get up and say what they said, and people will listen to them. And so in that sense, I think they were great witnesses. The thing I was disappointed about is because of our next witness or whistleblower, whatever you want to call him, David Grush, and his claims that he was making, these claims about reverse engineering and crash retrieval and alien bodies and all these secret locations where things are taking place, like reverse engineering. Is I just thought, if you're going to come out with a big claim like that, you need to back it up. And I know that David Grush has all the credibility in the world, but the problem is that he did not see any of this stuff firsthand. And I know he saw documentation. I believe him 100%. And maybe he even saw pictures. But what we needed, what would have been better, and hopefully what will be in the next hearing, is that there will be some whistleblowers who have firsthand knowledge of what's taking place in these legacy programs and stuff. So not to diminish anything that happened in this last House hearing, but I think it could have been better. And hopefully that will be the next hearing. I'm hearing speculation from people I know, some sources I have, that September is a possibility to have a hearing in the Senate. I haven't heard anything about who might lead that movement or to lead that hearing, but I'm hearing it a lot. So I'm putting maybe a 60% chance that will happen. We'll have to wait and see if it actually does. I want to remind everyone that it all began, not the ufology movement, not the pursuit of truth and transparency, but where we are today began with an article that came out of the New York Times. It was just groundbreaking because this stuff had never happened before, to have a major newspaper to get out and reveal that the government had a secret UFO program, and then to find out that Lou Elizondo was the one who ran at least one aspect of it, not OSAP, but ATIP, and for him to resign because he couldn't get the information in the right hands, because there were people that were keeping this information from getting to General Mad Dog Mattis, who could have actually done something about it. And I think I understand why they did that, plausible deniability. But Lou understood that he could not get the job done within the system. And he didn't want to tear the system down. And so what he did is he resigned, as many of you know, and he went to work with To the Stars Academy, and then eventually left that. And he's been doing, or had been doing, podcasts and stuff like that. But I want to remind you that Lou Elizondo was David Grush before there was a David Grush. And we all owe him a debt of gratitude. And I know there are some out there that have maligned him. And I want to remind you, John Greenwald was one of those people. And I got into a dialogue with him, and I asked for proof. And he kept telling me, go back and look at my old videos. Well, I'm not going to go back and look at your old videos. I want proof. I want to know who your source is. Is your source Susan Go? Is your source somebody that's working against disclosure? And I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, but with his latest comments about David Grush and seeming to side with those who are attacking David Grush because of his PTSD, and because he also sided with those that were attacking Lou Elizondo, I just, this is me, and I'm not telling you what to think, but I don't understand how anyone today would follow John Greenwald. I just don't get it. I think he started off as a very good man. I think if he had stuck with FOIA, which is a very good work that he has been doing, I think it would have been fine. But there's something amiss here, and I don't understand it, and I don't claim to understand it. But there's something wrong, and only John Greenwald knows exactly what that is. But my point is, we wouldn't be where we are right now without Lou Elizondo. And I know there are many others, and so I'm not just putting him up there and saying he's the only one. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that without him and the 2017 New York Times article, I'm not sure that we would be where we are today. And so let's not forget about the sacrifices that Lou Elizondo has had to make as well. I was talking about how do we get to disclosure? How do we get to disclosure? And so that's what I'm going to put underneath on my little ticker. How do we get to disclosure? And I want to say this right now. I don't believe that we will ever get disclosure the way people want it by these open hearings. I think they're very beneficial, but I've seen too many of my brothers and sisters on UAP Twitter, UAPX, believing that when these open hearings happen, that these people are just going to get up there and they're going to tell everything they know. They're going to talk about the programs, where they're at, who's involved with it. They're going to talk about dead bodies and where they're at. And I'm just like, well, that's not realistic, because there are NDAs. And if you break your NDA, or if you don't do this the right way, which is what David Grush was saying in the last hearing, you go to jail. Now, Lou was the one who told us that before, and people gave him a lot of flack. Well, why don't you just tell us? Because he doesn't want to go to jail. I mean, I don't want to go to jail. And I'm sure those criticizing him don't want to go to jail. And especially somebody working on the inside who reveals this information. It's not the same as if a reporter gets it from somebody and reveals it. And so we have to understand that. So it's time for people to quit attacking Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo is a good man, an honorable man. But let me repeat this. We are not going to get disclosure from these hearings. This is a part of the puzzle. This is part of how we get this done. I said it in a tweet yesterday. I really believe we need to make a multi-pronged attack. And I think we're doing that. And I'm so grateful. You can see on the slide I have there of Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb is just an incredible scientist out of Harvard. Man, he's just a remarkable man. He's been out there getting criticism when it wasn't popular to believe in aliens or extraterrestrial life or multiple or different dimensional life out there, interdimensional or whatever you want to call it. And he was there. He was there with the Muamua, the object that was out in space that didn't originate in our solar system, and he's out there going, this could be an extraterrestrial craft. And people made fun of him, and to this day we don't know, but I just think it was courageous. But if we're going to get to disclosure, not only do we need Congress, not only do we need whistleblowers, but we need the scientific community. And so Avi Loeb started the Galileo Project, and he's brought on many scientists and many advisors in this. And this is a civilian effort. And so this is another one of the ways, if we're going to get the disclosure, we not only need politicians, we not only need whistleblowers, but we need scientists. And another person that, actually, I got the wrong slide. He's a Stanford professor, so forgive me for that. But Gary Nolan. And Gary Nolan is an incredible person. Some of you know this, some of you may not, but he's actually studied biological effects on different individuals. The government came to him because of his specialty and immunology and stuff like that. And he ended up studying 100 people that were either military or military contractors that had been exposed to something related to UAPs, and they had these side effects. And one of the things that Gary had mentioned is it was very similar to Havana syndrome. And so anyway, he's been a great asset from like the medical field. Avi Loeb, I believe, is a astrophysicist. I think that's what his actual title is. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, two different branches of science coming at it from different angles. But if we're going to get to disclosure, we have to have scientists like Avi Loeb and Gary Nolan involved with this. But we need more. We need more than just politicians. We need more than just whistleblowers. We need more than just scientists. We need people to get the word out. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so thankful for George Knapp. George Knapp has been at this for a long time. I call him the godfather of UFO journalists because he's been doing it for a long time. In fact, the first time I'd ever heard of George Knapp was related to the interview that he ended up doing with Bob Lazar. I think they called him Dennis at first because they wanted to protect his identity. But that's the first time I heard of George Knapp. And over the years, over the last 34 years, since that day, he has been just a champion for trying to get disclosure. And so I have the utmost respect when we look at investigative reporters. I mean, George Knapp is like the top of my list. I mean, he is the OG when it comes to this. A new and up and coming star is Christopher Sharp. I mean, he's based out of London, but I mean, he's been out there breaking story after story, giving us, dates and times that hearings are going to go, getting us documentation. And so these guys are very, very important. And the next step we need to make is we've got to get the mainstream media involved with it. And that's one of the reasons I'm grateful that News Nation has literally become the go-to station, news station, to be able to get news about UAPs and UFOs. And they're the only one doing this, at least this way. Now, some of the other mainstream media outlets are giving it a little bit of recognition, and I almost feel like they have to. And so I'm grateful for News Nation. I'm grateful for The Hill. I mean, there are so many smaller outfits out there who have our backs, who are trying to help us to get to disclosure. And so let me encourage you, don't let a little setback as far as a hearing, whether it's going to happen or not, don't let that discourage you. Because I absolutely believe that if we can get all of these different groups of people, whether we're talking about politicians, whether we're talking about whistleblowers, whether we're talking about scientists, whether we're talking about journalists, if we can get them all together, that's how we get to disclosure. That's how we get to disclosure. And so I just wanted to put this video out. I wanted to encourage you guys to know that we are going to get there. There's absolutely no doubt. I'm not saying we're going to get there tomorrow. I'm not saying we're going to get there next week or next month or even next year, but we are going to get there. And I don't know. The other option for disclosure, which is probably the long shot, is maybe the aliens, the extraterrestrial, the non-human intelligence, maybe they will decide it's time to engage with us. But that's the long shot, because they seem to be teasing us right now. I mean, they're not completely hiding from us. We get sightings and thousands of people have seen them, but they haven't landed at the White House lawn. They haven't landed at the Vatican. And so they have chosen at this time not to completely reveal themselves. And I'm not going to get into any of the different beliefs about whether they are in the government or whatever. That's for a different time and a different discussion. But if we talk about disclosure, to me, that's the long shot, as far as them coming out. But it could happen, but we can't count on it. And that's why we've got to continue to press our politicians. We've got to continue to encourage whistleblowers and witnesses to come out. We've got to continue to try to encourage and get the scientific community involved with it. We've got to continue to work with journalists and also get, I think I said whistleblowers already, but to get more people involved with this. And you know what? We need to stay positive, because when we get negative, when we get down, there's no power there. There's no power. There's no juice there. And so we have to make sure that we're not naive, but we have to have energy. I mean, I'm telling you what, if you want to get a movement going, you have to have energy. And I really believe that we've got something going here. And it's like a snowball. The bigger it gets, the more impact it makes, the more ground it takes up. And so I believe that we're that snowball, and we're rolling, and we're gaining momentum, and we're growing. But we have to stay focused, and we have to stay encouraged. We have to stay positive. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. You have a great day, and probably putting out another video shortly. God bless.